Hey guys, it's ViewMasters Reactions, and we're back with Critical Role doing the Q&A for Episode 2, The Legend of Vox Machina. Last we saw, they reacted to Episode 1. We didn't get to see them actually react, which was slightly different than what I thought was going to be, but then they tapped into a bunch of specific aspects, not necessarily dealing with Episode 1, but revolving around the events that might have led up to the beginning and starting of Episode 1. And then it did talk of themes. We talked of Amon. They talked about Grog a little bit and Scanlan. They talked about different character designs. They showed us the artistic opinions, how they differed. Grog basically looked the same, with maybe the exception of a beard in different ways being added to his face. I feel like that was the only thing. I don't feel like it had any difference in his body type or anything. Scanlan had a very skinny version, a more in the middle version, I guess. The one we use, I feel like, is a more rounded version of the one that looked more like a moderate built Scanlan. He wasn't like too skinny, wasn't too big, kind of like stocky, but not like fat or anything like that. He looks how I'd expect him to look. I like how they tapped into Amon, why it looks differently from what they originally had described it as, I'm assuming, in the campaign, from what Matt said. I am going to jump in. We're going to talk about it at the end. After this, I'm going to watch Episode 3, but I don't think I'm going to have a chance to edit it up in time to get it out before we do the live stream. The live stream's in about an hour, and then we're going to watch Episode 4, 5, and 6 of The Legend of Vox Machina. I'm going to get them out in full on Patreon, and there's a lot to do today. I might end up switching the live stream to a different day. I thought it'd be fun to do on a Thursday because of everything going on, but it's a little bit too chaotic, I feel like. I wanted to get these videos done. I don't have a chance now because I'm jumping into that, and then I got to go right from that to the new show. It might just make my day like a 15-hour day. And that's all right now, but I feel like some weeks I'm going to be a little drained. So I don't know. We're going to play it by ear. You guys will know if things change up. But for now, we're having a glorious Thursday full of Vox Machina. You guys want to see more of what I do? Full unedited reactions, all the shows on the channel, seasons ahead of what you're seeing, and hundreds of exclusives you'll only see on Patreon. Link at the end. If not, here we go, guys. Critical Role doing the Q&A for Episode 2, The Legend of Vox Machina.
Well, for Matt and Brandon, this two-parter pilot has a lot of new stuff.
Two-parter pilot.
Adapted from
First question.
events. So can you guys walk us through the choice to have the series start here and what it was like adapting?
I like that question. Good question. Why do we start where we did?
I'll say it began with us trying to decide what would be a good arc to introduce the characters where they're still early enough in their relationship where they aren't fully established as heroes necessarily.
I talked about this,
but can still show them kind of finding themselves working together well.
Like, we didn't find them by themselves. They're already together.
And the powers of the Tal'dorei Council and Sovereign Uriel, and so, you know, this was really one of the events in the home campaign that really began to solidify that relationship. So it was an easy go-to for that. Also, elements of this set up events that we hope to come to down the line, which those of us who know Campaign 1 will know what we're discussing about. But like,
see, I have no idea.
Using this arc allows us to seed facets for later stories that we hope to tell as we go on. So that was kind of the initial thought process behind it. And then from there,
the funny thing is,
taking all the old DM notes, us deciding on moments.
I bet you even like the lesser known campaign parts are still very entertaining.
Yeah, and there was a completely different two-parter originally. Like, we had talked about doing something utterly different, and it was like, it involved like the team being like mind controlled and like a tunnel or something underneath the keep. It was sort of it was a little bit too, like, it just wasn't working. I remember coming in and just knowing that it wasn't a good intro.
Yeah, honestly, the way they described it, that sounds cool, but not to introduce. You don't want to mind control people you just met. How do you know what they're supposed to do?
A story where like they get sort of not mind controlled, but like you get to see like their worst fears.
Their fears, that's what it was.
Come to life.
That's cool. That'll describe a character.
I think so, yeah. And it was cool. It was a cool story, but as Brandon rightly pointed out, like if you don't know the characters, learning their deepest, darkest fears doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Exactly. And how would you know what is real and what is not when you don't know who they are and how they would act?
Brilliant pivot on
Much
Brandon's
better idea.
part. Yeah, well done.
I like it.
Well, thank you.
I like that. I like that question. Maybe my favorite one yet.
We're watching the show, kind of the casting process for these voices. So Sam and Travis, I would like to kind of hear about what was the process of that? Sam, I know you had a little bit of something to do with some of these voices.
They must be trying to break up
the
the cast so they could bring them on different weeks. Because they have questions specifically for some people.
It wasn't just the two of us. The whole cast and crew and Brandon weighed in on all these decisions, obviously. But we just started by kind of writing down a list of all the characters and just kind of like a dream team, a wish list of
fan cast of like who would be the coolest for these.
That's so awesome that you could be in that position.
Whiteboard, names, ridiculous pitches, people that we never thought would ever in a million years participate.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. We didn't get every single person we went.
Yep.
They must have had people come out of the woodwork that were fans they didn't even expect.
And it didn't work out.
Ooh, strong choice, strong choice.
I reacted to that. Vin Diesel.
We got a lot. We got a lot of them.
Vin
A lot of our
D.
first
What was it?
choices,
D and Diesel.
Were just they responded to the story of the show, like not just the story of the script, which is fantastic, but the story of how the show became a show. And we would pitch,
Kind of part of the reason I love everything about it from beginning to end. That's what draws me
in. You might not be
in.
able to understand how to pronounce the title of the show, but let me just tell you a story of why this show exists. It exists because there are thousands and thousands of people who love this, and there's 8 people at a table every week who pour their hearts and souls into these characters, and it's from that love and the love of the people who watch the show that this is being made. And
I feel like Scanlan would be a great Christmas elf. Like in real life, he should just be I mean, that sounds mean, I guess, kind of, but he looks like a happy person. And he's Scanlan, so I think of him.
A struggling artist who had a dream at some point, and a lot of these people were the amazing actors in our show were just like, yeah, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of this passionate fan group, and part of your I want to be part of your dream, basically. And so they signed on.
Well, that sounds a little
really
creepy, Scanlan.
I'll also say that we definitely pulled up videos of each one of our targeted actors and then looked at the character image, played a video file, and we were like, yes, I think it fits well.
I would totally do the same thing.
Something like that,
Yeah, you can't just pick people you love. It's gotta work.
Whenever things become a little more healthy, in a hopeful post-COVID world.
Like, I feel like when they created these people, even NPCs, there's a person in mind.
And then cry heavily in front of them for being a part of this.
It's also wild now, as big as a name as some of these folks are. I've been getting DMs and texts from some of them saying like, holy shit, your fans are awesome. Like,
which is very true.
And they're like, my Instagram is blowing up because of you guys. And
Hopefully David
Hey,
texted you exactly where
I
holy shit.
accidentally found this out as well. You guys are great. Everyone's great.
They can hear you guys. They see the critter love. They felt the critter hug.
That's pretty funny.
The doctor knows you guys.
That's right.
There's a lot of pressure on us right now.
Other people in the industry.
Yeah, that too.
I mean, it's something that has kind of reached beyond the borders of just the nerd world. Like, people who I know in my life who have nothing to do with anything that we do at all have been like, isn't that thing the thing that I saw on the front page of Amazon Prime? Like, don't you work with them sometimes?
That's pretty funny, because the same thing happens with me. People that I would never expect to know about it are like, oh, I've seen something about that.
So thank you.
Hopefully on my channel, because they're good friends and watch my stuff.
Like, oh, I get it.
I was just super excited. Like, my grandma and grandpa,
Come
like, we're
on.
texting, like, the show is so great. We saw the first 3 episodes. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And I sit there and think, they've listened to Sam sing about anal beads.
And watched.
I was just gonna say, like, that's pretty funny.
Sure.
I would imagine, though, he's probably got awesome grandparents. If he's like that, you're kind of usually like your family, somewhat. You're not gonna be an awesome dude like that and have a shitty family, usually.
Every grandparent has seen a ball.
Anyway, so Brandon.
What a great T-shirt, Scanlan. Every grandparent has seen a ball, and it's so true. It's very true. I mean, unless you had clothes on or sheets were involved.
You put up with me, so it's okay. So Brimscythe, Cool lightning dragon. Let's talk about
Brim
the
Scythe.
What was the design
Cool
process like?
lightning dragon.
Oh man, well we talked about it a little bit, but yeah, we decided to go with CG because it's just so impossibly just difficult to, you know, render just a
I
normal
honestly
dragon.
liked
You
the
really can't do it.
contrast.
Like, it's gonna have to be super simplified.
It was
It's
cool
not
in
gonna
my
look that great.
opinion.
But yeah, so we went with CG because that's really the way to go. You can get all kinds of details.
That's
on
a
the
cool
wings,
cell
the
right there.
scales, the
I want
claws.
that. I want to hang it up.
Yeah, I mean, it made the most sense.
I like that all the dudes
but
are
like
there.
we had mentioned earlier, it was a little cute
Pike.
early
Pike's
on.
awesome.
Like,
I like
not
Pike.
The designs. The designs were pretty much perfect. I mean, you've got Phil like just knocking it out of the park design-wise. But when we first looked at the you know, the CG model, like, you know,
I said this in the episode, but it gave me a lot of feels like the CG Godzilla, the animated
CG model
one.
was already done. So that was just, you know, sort of you know, a little bit harrowing, a little bit nerve-wracking.
I feel like the
and,
drawn
came out
animation with
killer.
the CG was like so
He gave us all these
awesome
different,
looking.
you know, choices to choose from, and we would pick and choose different features. And you know, we also had conversations like, are there physical parts that are going to activate as he charges up, you know, his weapon and everything. And it was just such a fun like little tinker shop to work in. And you always try to keep in mind like other dragon designs are out there, so that you're doing something that's, you know, unique and
Yeah.
new.
I mean, it reminds me of things, but for the most part, the way it stands and everything,
sort of evoke different animal shapes, lion shapes.
yeah, it's
shark
definitely more
shapes,
like
or,
a
you know,
cat,
other
like a
kind
big
of
cat.
animal, designs and
That one's a little more
I dig it.
bestial kind of
And they're gonna
Monster
talk,
Hunter-esque.
Monster Hunter,
Yeah, typically
It's
dragons, you see like shorter, stubbier
personality.
arms
I mean, it
generally,
has
I
to
feel
talk,
like.
it has to speak, so
This is more
when you think about
cat-like.
all those factors
Right there
going
is
in, it has
special.
to fly. It's you know, it's fly in a specific space. It's just very complicated. Also the weakness, you know, seeing the twin rivers, the power up in its throat, like that was very specific. We had to figure out. Yeah, it was a very complicated process, but I think we got it there.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be scared of the dragon, so.
It's pretty scary.
Pretty scary dragon.
God, I still think the moment in the first episode when they first fight it and Scalen's running from it and it comes and does like the side bite and just like carves through like
yeah.
5
That low angle
trees.
camera.
Yes.
Yeah.
The minute I saw it, I was like,
There was a lot of really
cool.
cool shots. I had to edit up some. It was actually pretty
Fantasy, anything. You're like, okay,
pretty
you fight dragons.
kind
Sure.
for the edits on
You
that.
kind of become numb to the concept of dragons,
How do you
which is
make it unique?
hilarious. How do you make it unique and how do you make it scary? This was a very unique and scary
You
dragon.
want to make sure that it had size, but also had moments of extreme speed.
That's right.
And you see it at the top of the second episode, especially when it's like taking out the army. It's like, you know, it can move with unexpected speed at that size.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was definitely one of the intentional elements of the animation.
For sure.
Also, the corpses were burned to a crisp.
There's that too. Yeah.
That sucks.
Yes.
Sorry, Felicia.
Yeah. Bye, Felicia.
Definitely
Bye, Felicia.
Anyway, so question from chat.
very similar to me to the Game of Thrones thing. And there was like a Brienne kind of girl leading the pack that got killed
For the
quickly.
voice actors. It's just for
Oh,
just
it's
for
just mainly for Matt.
It's mainly for Matt. So what is the acting process for adapting your characters' voices and mannerisms between informal improv role-playing and acting from a script? Are there any changes that you needed to make or that an actor generally needs to make it feel more natural? Or does it feel more natural to play them in either environment rather than the script?
I'm curious, some people.
I mean, that's 7 questions in one.
Yeah, that's a lot. It was, yeah.
I wanted to know a lot of things all at once.
Sure.
Yeah, I get it.
I even though our amazing producer Ashley Middlebrook told me do not look at chat during this, I've been looking at chat, and I saw I saw some people asking about like how much is improvised, how much is not improvised and stuff. I mean, obviously Brandon writes a good script, so we didn't have to improvise much. But especially for these first few episodes when we were all together in the room, it just sort of happened naturally.
I feel like he's got a
Not
lot to
just,
go off of
not entire
material-wise,
lines, but, you know,
just
the
based
punchline
on
things or
them
the
as
beginnings of lines or
characters.
the way we would stammer into a line or whatever was improvised. I don't think a lot of like the characterizations changed from the home game to the.
I would feel like they would play characters they're comfortable with, because it stemmed from a home game. So they must love and feel comfortable at how they do
We
it.
just sort of say things in character, but
Yeah.
unless it's like a vital, important moment, you're just kind of saying things. You're not like, what's my motivation?
Yeah,
for
like
this
I feel like they
moment?"
just, it just is.
But for this, like we know every scene has an intention, and like we're driving towards something, and so we just had to just be on a little bit more through the process. But it was so great to be there with our friends in the room. you know, vibing off each other.
I feel like that was the easiest
little
or
bits of,
best way he
involved
could have
in
answered
that.
that, I
So,
should
you know,
say.
Every script also gets seen by the cast too, in case they want to like tweak a line to be a little more in their character's voice, you know, or we kind of just make sure that we're comfortable with all the scripts and we don't have to do much, you know, because these people are amazing who are writing them. But
Yeah, like I would
make
feel
sure
like
that
they
we're
are.
all comfortable with the
They got
dialogue
all this
being very much
down.
on voice for
The writers.
everybody's own character since they've created them and lived with them for so long. So and to a degree, there's even, you know, some adjustments there. But yeah, I mean, we've lived with these characters for years and years, front to back, the whole story with them. So like,
Yeah,
we're all pretty comfortable stepping back.
They're us, literally. Like at some point, where do you stop being your character when you're that
No feet.
involved with it?
We can't show our
I mean, and now you're making money off it and
You hear that, Twitch?
having a show. I would live it every day.
I just gotta
Well-
put my foot up under.
Please don't.
Can we talk a little bit about how?
Why does he
Dice
have a silver,
affected the
bigger
story? Did you guys
stein
honor
of
how the
Al?
rules came out
Al.
in story? Did that
Ale.
affect how you wanted to tell the story?
I thought they said ale.
in the
Ale.
show versus how it happened
Yeah, well,
in
we
the
kept a
campaign.
very strong record of every dice roll made in the home game.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
10
Brandon,
years
that
ago.
scene has to end differently because
Well, because I failed my
Years
charisma
ago.
check actually, so.
Yeah, we just kind of looked at it in terms of like a story beats, right? If there was a failure on our parts, right, a nat 1, it usually made for a hilarious story beat, and that was something that we loved and we kept for the story. You know, adversely, if there was a great success, then that probably stayed.
I was gonna say, sometimes
we
bad
were
things
really rolling in the
are
writing room to
very
see-
entertaining.
I think it was less about rolling, and then more like saying in a moment of failure, be like, "That's like you rolled a 3," or you know, and I really like,
Yeah.
like
Little rollies,
Yeah.
rollies in
Yeah.
the writing
Yep.
room.
That's
yeah.
right.
Or like when Vax, you know, dragged his daggers down the dragon in that fight there, we're like, that's a fucking natural 20.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a 20
So
right there.
it's less like saying the dice roll and then tailing the story to the dice roll. It's more like
Okay.
creating the story beats that we think are cool and make sense for the moment, and then tailoring dice rolls that made sense for it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I feel like we did.
Almost
get
like a
sort of,
reverse.
social
I dig
interactions
it.
Where people who are familiar with the game would understand that that may have been a failed check.
Yeah.
That may have been a failed roll.
Sure.
And that, I think, was the goal. We wanted it to feel natural to our home game, you know. and then
People
make
have
your-
said
where
this in
those
the
things
comments.
Guide the story, and so those beats naturally bring along with them the feeling of those dice rolls. Anybody who plays the game, is familiar with our game, can definitely kind of read between the lines and be like, I see what that is.
yeah,
Yeah.
early on in episode 1, Percy fires his.
Someone talked about this in my
and
comments.
misfires, and that it's like it's just a little nod.
That's
to, like,
exactly
not
the
work
moment
in
I was going to
this.
talk about. That's funny he brought it up because it was in comments days
Speaking
ago,
of people who may be familiar with the
way
game,
before
with
they
things that have
reacted.
happened, let's talk a little bit about Gilmore's Glorious Goods.
Gilmore,
And
I
how
wanted to talk about this. I think it's hilarious they brought it up because that dude right there,
And how phenomenal
I feel
Gilmore
like is
combines
Gilmore,
Zaddy
or at least
himself.
modeled after or something.
And
He
there are
looks
a lot
just
of
like him.
Easter eggs in that shop. I think we mentioned the Tusk Love book. You
Tusk
mentioned
Love.
the
Oh,
Triceratops
yes.
Head. There's a little weasel,
Yeah, little Crimson Weasel.
little
in there.
crimson weasel in there, and we have some art
Oh, yeah.
here of the concept and the designs and how it came to life.
so
The
cool.
second floor.
That's awesome.
Look at that art.
Way.
That is awesome. We get a whole little
For
diagram of the whole
upper
thing.
decker area.
That's something else.
Arthur had created something where you can try on armor and try on your wares before you buy them.
Oh my God, I didn't
the
even, like
whole
their
modeling
mirrors.
runway
Yeah,
is
it's
sort
like a,
of
that's
an area
hilarious.
we don't get to do much there.
I was gonna say, we were in and out of there
that it's there.
quite quickly considering.
And we talked a lot about like the color palette.
Maybe we'll revisit it.
In the first pass through, it was mostly.
He was the one that
mostly
had
purple. I think we varied
The
it a bit more.
dragon
Gold.
killing
gold in
Lance, I
there,
think
yeah,
it was.
yeah.
But there's lots of Easter eggs, probably some that I don't even know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Are there
Yeah,
any
for sure.
off the top of your head that you can remember other than the ones we've mentioned?
I mean,
There's the Sandal of Gygax
Yeah.
in there.
Gygax.
Chris Bernowski is
I know that name
He
now.
owns that.
I think
Or did
he
he?
only got it for 1 year.
Or did he pass it
I
on?
think he passed it on, but I don't know. Don't quote me on that. Chris?
I think
There are
you're
a
right.
couple hats in the shop as
Oh,
well.
there's a witch hat.
Yep.
yeah.
Witch's hat.
He had it for
Okay.
1 year and
Easter
passed it
egg
on.
There's,
sort of
there's,
thing.
the, there's the broom.
There's a broom. Yeah,
Yep.
that's correct.
It feels like there's a missed marketing slogan for Gilmore's. Come to Gilmore's and get an upper decker.
No.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure to flesh out Gilmore and bring it to life. And the whole art team did such a good job.
Yeah, all those backgrounds. There's something in all those shots.
It's killer.
There's Big Flash.
I was gonna say, like, you have that much to work
Flash
with.
in the background.
Oh, I love that.
There's a bunch of little hidden things.
That's awesome.
Just seeing
I mean, that would be so
moving
fun
around,
for a writer to just, or anybody involved, just to like add stuff in the background.
So happy.
So perfectly animated.
He is.
See, I don't know it enough to look for things, but normally in a show I'm fond of, I would be looking. Like a Boba Fett or Mandalorian,
Like, there was
I'm
a
all over
character
that
I was
shit.
more precious about than Gilmore, and finding the right person to do it. And not only did he knock it out of the park with his audition, and then working with him to like refine the role, and he just brought such a life and vibrancy to it. I'm just so happy. I'm so happy.
Perfect casting.
Perfect casting.
Thank you, Sunil.
All right, guys, so there we go. That's the conclusion of their Q&A for episode 2 of The Legend of Vox Machina. They were literally talking at the end about the one thing I wanted to talk about and completely forgot about, but I saw this image. I like to change the images up that I use. Even though I just used one for episode 1, I'm going to use a different one for episode 3, and I used a different one for this one. But I wanted to say, when I found this image, I feel like, I don't know his name, but the dude standing in between Marissa and Ashley Johnson, I feel like that guy is new for campaign 3. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I feel like he's the dude they brought in for campaign 3. I don't know if he's a specific character or just kind of helps him with things, or maybe he's NPCs. I thought, because he just looks very much like Gilmore, but now I'm pretty sure it's not. And then when they said the name of the guy who did the voice of Gilmore, I remembered when I watched it, I'm like, oh wait, no, it wasn't that guy, because I did go and look. I forget where this guy comes in, but oddly enough, I used this image and it made me think of that. And then they talked about Gilmore'S. So they show Gilmore'S actual designed place in animation form. I love stuff like that. I love when you could just sit and look at something and see how they actually built it all. I was thinking myself, what a large place to design and build for us to see when we were in it for so little. And we only really focused around the front area where Gilmore was when he was talking with Liam. He had a thing going on with Liam. Liam was flirting back. I don't know if they've had a relationship or they flirt or what's going on, but something was going on there. I don't know if we'll ever revisit him or at what points in the campaign they might have, but I feel like at some point we're going to come and go from this place. So maybe we'll revisit him so that area will make more sense, or we'll have more to do with that place. I can't imagine they'd build such a nice place and then we'd never touch base there again. I feel like that's coming back, especially since there was some flirty kind of things going on with him and Liam, aka Vax. Besides that, I really enjoyed the first question. The first question they asked was, why and how basically did you pick those 2 episodes to start it all? Considering it's pre-stream, you could have picked anywhere to start. You could have literally did anything you wanted in those 2 episodes to lead up to where we are. And I've discussed and talked about many times how I thought it was very interesting how they started where they did. They didn't start where everyone was on their own and we all kind of met up real quick. That's how I thought episode 1 was going to happen. I thought everyone was going to be on their own, or maybe some people kind of already ran into each other, but there was going to be a good half an episode to an episode focused on everybody kind of running into each other, how we all met, how we became this band of misfits. But no, we start in a tavern. We're already buddies. We're already drinking. We already sort of know each other enough that we're kind of like almost a family already. And they talked about why they chose there, how there were certain events they thought maybe they'd use, like one where they lost their memories and stuff like that. Another one where they saw their worst and darkest fears. But those are tapping deeply into emotional things and personalities of people that we've never even met yet. So that's the way you shouldn't go. And they said that's why we didn't go that way. You can't really tell how a person's acting differently if you don't know how they act normally to begin with. You've got to learn and grow and live with these characters. And then if their biggest, darkest fears are brought out, then you're thinking, oh my God, they hate this stuff, because I know, because they've talked about it for my entire experience with this character, or something along those lines. For instance, the first thing they said was their memories were wiped. How the heck are we going to know their memories are wiped? We know nothing about them. But that was a good question. I like that they started there. I thought it was interesting that she asked the question about whether or not she's not asking these questions. I'm assuming these are, I think she said people in the chat or people writing in with questions. I then figure they filter the questions and then ask them or whatever. But I'm assuming these aren't her personal questions. I feel like she was asking if they had trouble being the characters that they are, but I think they answered it very well, saying we've lived these characters for so many years. This is like literally things we've mimicked ourselves after. Why would they ever choose to be anything that was like uncomfortable? I would assume that everything they decided was things they really saw themselves doing or things they wanted to do. It must be a breeze and a dream to be these characters. It's probably like a way to escape their real lives and actually be and act the way they'd want to act in this great, wonderful fantasy world. So we're going to jump into the third episode. I don't think I'm going to be able to edit it up in time because the live stream's in less than 30 minutes. So we're going to edit this up. We're going to throw it up on the channel. I'll see you in the live stream in less than 30 minutes. And then episode 4, 5, and 6 of The Legend of Vox Machina will be rolling out. You guys want to see more of what I do, full on edited reactions of all the shows on the channel, seasons ahead of what you're seeing, and hundreds of exclusives you'll only see on Patreon. The link is in front of me. If not, comments down below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.